If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call-in talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Tonight, you're here for a Wheel of Time debate. But before we get to the debate, I just want to remind you, we have some shows coming up here over the next week. This Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, we're doing a deep dive into the Forsaken. Yes, you asked for this episode. We're talking all about Moghedien, Grendel, and yes, Lanfear. That's right, my guest that night will be Delusions of Grendel, Vance of the Gleeman, and the Amarylline Seat of Tarvalon.net. Can't wait to have all three of them with us on Sunday. And then we're in for a treat. This next Watt Wednesday, my guest will be Jason Denzel. Yes, Wheel of Time, or a night of Wheel of Time Innkeepers. He's the creator of Dragonmount and a good friend of mine. We're just going to chat all about the Wheel of Time. We're going to dig into good old days of Theoryland and Dragonmount and bring that up into recent times and get his opinion all about the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. So yeah, I can't wait for that to take place. That's next Watt Wednesday. And just a reminder, this Friday, at 8 p.m. Eastern, a bunch of Wheel of Time content creators are getting together for what they're calling the Wada Holiday. While the Dusty Wheel won't be participating, make sure to check them out. It's a 24-hour I guess, wadathon, if you want to call it that, where they're raising money for the Lightweaver Foundation. Make sure to check them out on Molecular Talks. You can check him out. I think we have his link in the description. It'll be on his YouTube channel. And he happens to be with us here tonight. So without further ado, let me welcome our debate participants for tonight. Team Evil AI and Team Tam Jokes. Welcome, everybody. How you doing?
Hey.
I love it. Tam Jokes here. I thought you guys would be Team Malkyr or Team Malkyr's Kings or something like that, but Team Tam Jokes. I like that. That was good. That's good. And then Team Evil AI. That's Siansonea and Mary up top if you're watching here on the show. Thank you all for showing up for a Wheel of Time debate. I know we've given you a bunch of questions here. For those of you that did not see our last one, it was all about the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. This one is all about the books. So I thought what we'd do is we'd go through the rules really quick, and then let's jump into the debate itself. Now, for those that are watching, yes, there's going to be spoilers all the way through all the books. So if you don't want anything in the books ruined, stop watching now. Hopefully you come back, talk to us either all about the Forsaken on Sunday or check us out when Jason comes next week. But if you do want to stay here for the spoilers, then this is how the debate's going to work. Each team will field one team member who will have 2 minutes each to debate a question. Then they'll have 1 minute rebuttals. And then we'll bring all team members back on the screen. And then the team member who did not participate in that particular question will get 30 seconds to add their final thoughts. And then you, the live public in YouTube chat, will be voting on the winner of each of these debates. So we're looking forward to seeing who you believe gives the best argument here. And I do want to remind you that while this is a friendly kind of situation, all of our participants here have agreed that a little friendly, generic, mildly derisive smack talk is okay for the evening. Do I have everyone's agreement here? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you consider Uno mildly derisive, then we're good.
Okay, I'm looking forward to this.
I've heard worse.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just get to this thing. And just as a reminder from the polls themselves, what about the polls, Taylor?
Which one goes first?
No, I've already picked who's going to go first. So, yeah, no. Sorry, Taylor had a question about the polls. The only polls we do tonight is voting on the winners of each debate. So today's first team to answer the question will be our team Tam Jokes, and then the second team up will be Team Evil AI. Who's participating from each team for this first question?
Me.
Okay, Siansonea is participating, and Matt. Okay, excellent. So let me get to the question. Taylor, you can let them kind of set up for this while I discuss and explain to the viewers what the first question's going to be. Robert Jordan's world is full of rules. Rules he wrote in advance of publishing The Eye of the World, and then rules he at times seemed to make up on the fly at a QA. But he did a fantastic job of keeping it all together. So my participants have been advised to take care when answering the following question. I've asked them what they consider to be the biggest plot hole within the story of the Wheel of Time and why. So first up, Matt, you have 2 minutes here to answer that question, followed by Siansonea, who you'll get your 2 minutes. And go ahead, Matt, and tell us your answer.
Okay. What I consider to be the biggest plot hole is the fact that when Moiraine and Lan arrive in the Two Rivers, they don't seem to know who the Dragon Reborn is. And that has always bothered me for years. Because if you look back at New Spring, Moiraine and Swan, they have been collecting the names of all the people who gave birth around in the vicinity of Dragonmount. And Moiraine was going from place to place to place to try to find that one person. So she knew that the Dragon Reborn had to be reborn on Dragonmount. And when she got to the Two Rivers, the only person who had left the Two Rivers was Tam. So the only person who could have been the Dragon Reborn was Rand. And yet they don't seem to have any idea. She says, she has that line about the Dark One wants you three, one or all. So they're all important. I get that she needs to take them all, But the fact that they don't know, and there's zero indication that they have any idea that he is who he is always bothered me. And I'm just going to stop there because I had a lot more that I was going to say, and it all just boiled down to that. So that's my argument.
Okay. Thank you. Interesting answer you chose there, Matt. I like it. Now, Siansonea, you have the same question, and you have 2 minutes to give your answer.
Okay, well, I think that the biggest plot hole is Matt speaking the old tongue before he meets the eelfin. Because as we've discussed in our discussions about metaphysics, when a soul is reborn, it's wiped clean. There's no memories that carry over except under very special circumstances. And basically, Luz Theron is the only other example that we see in the books of somebody who experiences that. Whereas Matt's just a Taviran, which, that's something, but there's no mechanism or explanation for how he has memories of the old tongue and how he has memories of battle cries from old Manetheren. And of course, Moiraine's like, well, the old blood of Manetheren runs strong in the two rivers and everything, but language is not encoded in DNA. So it always struck me as something that was just kind of thrown in as a red herring so that Matt would have something that made him kind of special and weird, so that the reader would wonder if maybe Matt is the Dragon Reborn. But then it just kind of gets dropped and it's never really addressed. And it always just felt like an abandoned plot line that retroactively became a plot hole. So that's basically my thoughts on that.
I like it. Yeah, interesting. Wow, it's one of these things when you're running a debate, you have no idea what you're going to come up with. Interesting takes, which is Matt's ability basically to have the memories of this language, and that seems like you said an interesting kind of potential plot hole, or the fact that Moiraine should have known that Taim had left and he's the only one. It could have been, it should have been Rand. So now I'm going to give you both a minute to rebut the other person's arguments. So we'll start with you, Matt. You have 1 minute to rebut the arguments that Siansonea just made.
Well, it's an interesting point. All I can really say here, let me consult my notes, is that our esteemed opponents are very nice people, but don't vote for them because our answers are better.
That's your rebuttal. That's all you got, huh? That's all you got.
That's Canadian smack talk. That's what I got for this.
I gotcha. A little Canadian smack talk. Okay. So,
It just never. I understand that. It's just never bothered me.
Gotcha. I love the cup. Okay, Siansonea, I'll give you the option here also to rebut the arguments that that Matt has made here. Go ahead.
Well, I think that there are a number of ways that you could explain Moiraine and Lan not knowing something, because there's always a way to say, well, maybe Moiraine just wanted to be sure. Maybe she just, in any case, there's a lot of ways you can kind of explain that. But with Matt having knowledge of the old tongue before even Shadow Logoth, it makes you wonder, like, this is a lore issue. This is a metaphysics issue. It's not just somebody didn't know something that they should have known when they didn't know it, if that makes any sense.
Okay, thank you, both of you. Now we'll bring everybody back into the show here and see what your team members have to say about your arguments and the rebuttals already made. And we'll give them 30 seconds each to make a final plea to the audience as to why their team member is either correct or why the other one's incorrect. So I will let you, Mary, go first and tell us in 30 seconds what you think.
Okay. First of all, it wasn't revealed from the get-go that Rand was not born in the Two Rivers. In fact, it wasn't common knowledge that he was adopted. Everybody assumed he was Tam's son. And, Moraine didn't come in asking, hey, were you born on Dragonbound by any chance 18 years ago to the day? She had to be a lot more circumspect to it. Now, granted, she said 18 years to be that way, but she didn't have that information. And then the Trollocs attacked, and then everything happened. They had to go. She figured it out.
Thank you very much, Mary. I think you got your last word in there before you ran out of time. Interesting points you made there. And now, Rob, let's give you the same opportunity. You have 30 seconds here to rebut the arguments that you either heard Mary or Siansonea just say. Go ahead.
Okay, so Matt speaking the old tongue, that's not a plot hole, okay, because he couldn't speak it fluently. He could speak a little bit of it, a few battle cries. He could understand a bit of it. And it's not until he got to the Eorfin that he got the complete understanding. So he had a little in with his old bloods, and then the Eorfin gave him the rest of his memories. He is the Lord of Battles. So it just comes from that. It's a little bit, it's not, he had a lot, and then suddenly, he loses everything. It's just that little bit, and the Eorfin gave him the rest. Enjoy.
Good arguments. Okay, thank you very much. This is question 1. You all did really well. Now, for those of you that are in chat, if you happen to be watching this on Twitter, over on Twitch, and you want to participate in the actual voting who wins each round of these 5 rounds, and then eventually picking our winner tonight, you got to come over to YouTube and jump into chat with us, or just keep watching from where you're at. Those of you that are in chat, Taylor's going to drop in a vote mechanism here for you. You'll see it. Don't vote yet for those of you that have been with us before, but you will type into chat !vote, and then you're going to choose either T for the team Tam Jokes or E for the team Evil AI. So who do you believe actually won this debate? So you can go ahead. It's in chat right now. You can vote. That's !vote T or !vote E for your winner. And we're going to leave that open here for the next entire question. So you'll have the opportunity to vote your winner between E or T. And let's get on to now our second question. Now, those of you obviously that did not participate in the first question will now be our participants. So we're going to have Rob from Team Tam Jokes, and we're going to have Mary from Team Evil AI with us. And let me introduce you to the second question as they get prepared here. So question 2 is, experiencing the choices made by our favorite characters can be frustrating, especially on rereads. As you think about the Wheel of Time, what do you believe is the most frustrating decision made by any character from the Two Rivers during the Third Age, beginning from Chapter 1 of The Eye of the World through the epilogue of A Memory of Light? And just as a reminder again, the question is, what do you believe is the most frustrating decision made by any character from the Two Rivers during the Third Age, beginning from Chapter 1 of The Eye of the World through the epilogue of A Memory of Light? And to start us off, Mary, you will go first, and now you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we're going to dip into the overflowing well of poor life choices that is Rand al'Thor. And our nomination for the most frustrating wool-headed decision made is Rand's choices when it comes to the Black Tower. He declared an amnesty for all men who could channel, and he wanted to create an institution to normalize male channelers and to humanize these men who are fated to die and yet still serve the light. And then he orders Taim to make them into living weapons. He gives a pretty speech about being a guardian of truth and right and saying one couldn't be called an Ashaman and stand for an evil cause. And then he hands the whole thing over to Mazrim Taim. And let's talk about Mazrim Taim. Why under the light would Rand, who's had major trust issues ever since he found out he was adopted, trust Mazrim Taim? The guy literally shows up on his doorstep demanding glory. And but Rand chose him to train the Ashaman. And by making that choice, he chose to trust Taim. And I know Rand's a woolhead, but even he should have seen this coming. In The Lord of Chaos, he specifically tells Taim, don't think of glory. And Taim's response back was, I'm doing this for the glory. And Rand was either too distracted or too dense to realize that he was being played. So he created this institution to train weapons, and then not only walked away from it, but basically gift wrapped it and gave it to a dark friend who then turned it into a Dreadlord recruiting agency, whether you wanted to be one or not.
Well said. Okay, that's your the end there. Thank you very much, Mary. Interesting points. I think for those of us that have all read, that can be a very frustrating decision that Robert Jordan put his character into. And I saw somebody ask in chat, yes, it's just this relates to Two River characters, and obviously Rand does qualify for that. So, okay, now let's move over to you, Rob from Malkier Talks. If you haven't checked out Rob's channel, make sure, like I said, go check out his link in the description here below. But Rob, this same question goes to you. Tell us what you were thinking.
Okay, so for me, Perrin has the most frustrating decision in the story, and it's all to do with when he goes to get Masema for Rand. He lets himself get pinned into this, go pick him up, come back through a gateway, I can have Masema, all these dragons sworn, everything's sorted. And what he gets there and he's like, no, I'm not taking gateways. No, not doing that, sorry. And he just allows himself to be pinned into this, I've got to trek across the country with this psycho, And then suddenly his wife gets kidnapped. We get all of that. And it's like, my wife's been kidnapped. We're going to have to take gateways to go rescue. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, we'll go take gateways. Yeah, we'll do that. That's fine. And it's like, you wouldn't take a gateway to see your god, but you'll take gateways to rescue the wife of some dude you just met. And I'm like, what? Yeah, drove me mad the entire time. Obviously, we then get the entire story arc that follows on from that, which obviously the fandom is great on. And I'm like, Perrin, why could you not argue that when it was going to see Rand, but you could argue that when it was picking up your wife? And I just, it's wildly frustrating. And I'm just going to drink my tea and leave it there because I don't think there's anything more to be said.
You think it speaks for itself. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you, both of you, for your initial arguments here. Now we get to the 1 minute rebuttal round here. Mary, let's hear what you think about the rebuttal to Rob's arguments.
It's an excellent point. I'll have to give you that. But I think the frustration stems more from the plot arc that was spawned by that decision than the actual decision itself. It was, Perrin was just trying to solve the problem and get Masema back, and he came up with a solution which ultimately turned into a bit of a slog. But it wasn't the decision itself that was frustrating.
Okay. Thank you, Mary, for that rebuttal. And now, Rob, you also have a minute to rebut the arguments made by Mary about her choice.
Okay, so Rand didn't really have a choice when it came to having Mazrin Taim run the Black Tower. He had no one else who had time and the ability to train his Ashaman. He gave them titles and medals and things like that, so they felt like a group together. But he had no choice but to leave him running the tower. Just no option there. So if he had someone else, fine. It would have been frustrating to pick the guy who ended up being a dark friend. But when you've got no one else and you don't have time to do it yourself, it's the best of the bad options. So I didn't find that frustrating. I don't think that qualifies.
Okay, best of the bad options is the rebuttal here. Okay, thank you both very much for your arguments here. Now let's bring in the rest of your teammates to this discussion, and let's hear what they have to say as far as their 30-second responses to what they've just heard. And why don't we begin with you, Matt? Why don't you give us your 30-second argument for why your team member is correct and why Team Evil AI is incorrect?
So, when Rand first met Mazrim Taim, after the whole speech and introduction, Rand asked him why he was willing to tag along and be second to the Dragon Reborn when he had tried to be the Dragon Reborn himself. And Taim's response was, because better to get a slice of the bread than nothing. Rand was becoming increasingly distrusting, and he knew he had to start trusting people because he didn't want to turn into that kind of person. I'm running out of
You're already out of time. It's a tough 30 seconds, admittedly there, but thank you very much, Matt, for your answer. And Siansonea, why don't you give us your answer?
Well, I think Rob's frustration is more with Masema's decision than Perrin's, because it was just Perrin's decision to not address Masema's weirdness. Whereas with the Rand Taim situation, it's like Rand did have other options. He had Logain. He had other options. And it's not so much that he just appointed Taim, but he appointed Taim and then peaced out.
Okay, now you've heard it. Those of you that are with us in chat, and hopefully over on Twitter, you have enjoyed this little sneak peek into our Wheel of Time debate. We have 3 more questions. If you happen to be watching us on Twitter, jump over. If you want to see the rest of this debate, we will be here on YouTube having this for the next hour. We'd love to have you here with us. But yes, thank you if you're with us on Twitter for being here. And for those of you that are in YouTube chat, let's find out who you picked as the winner of the debate for the first question. So Taylor will post that winner for the first question here in chat shortly. And once we know that winner, we'll actually begin the voting for the next one. So let's see who you picked as the winner of question 1. Ooh, really close. Wow. Yes. 54.55% of the votes went to Team Tam Jokes. How close. Thank you very much for everyone that voted. Well done. And now you are up to vote for the second question you've just heard. Do you believe that Team Evil AI or Team Tam Jokes made the better argument? So Taylor, let's throw that vote back in. Remember, don't vote yet until you see the note from Taylor in chat that a vote has been opened. There we go. So go ahead. It is ! Vote T for Tam's Jokes, or you have E for Evil AI. So while that vote is occurring, let's jump to question number 3. And we have 2 members from question number 3. We'll start off with, in this case, Team 1, Tam's Jokes, or Tam Jokes, sorry, I keep on saying that, and then Evil AI will give us the second answer. So the team members from there are setting up here, and while they do, I will introduce the question. Question 3 goes, it is more well known now that Robert Jordan originally intended for Taim to be Demandred, and for Demandred to have killed Asmodean. With the upcoming The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime adaptation, knowing they have already made some changes, do you believe that Rafe and his team should maintain Robert Jordan's original intent, or maintain that Taim became a new chosen and Grendel became Asmodean's killer? Now, I want to note this, and this is what the instructions they were giving. For both, Demandred being with the Sharans is possible, and therefore should not be part of your reasoning or answers. In this case, the teams were allotted an answer that they had to support. And to start us off, we have Team Tam Jokes, and we have Matt telling us why he believes that The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime should maintain Taim as a new chosen and Grendel as Asmodean's killer. Okay, so Matt, you have 2 minutes to convince us that that is the correct answer. Go ahead.
Okay. Normally, I am not a purist when it comes to adapting a story from one medium to another, and we know that there will certainly be changes and cuts made in order to make the essence of the story make sense within the visual medium. However, in this particular circumstance, I'm going to argue that it makes sense to adhere to the books and keep the separate Taim and Demandred characters. First, it is worthwhile to note that that Robert Jordan's original vision, according to his notes, was to make Demandred and have Demandred pose as Taim and kill Asmodean. However, that didn't happen, as we all know. Robert Jordan changed his mind, perhaps because it was too obvious, and he never liked to do things that were particularly obvious. He liked to keep everybody guessing and off balance. But the fact remains that he considered it and discarded it. Now, author's intent might not compel an interpretation, but it certainly is a voice that is worth considering. And there really is a beauty in keeping people guessing. We want the new viewers to be carried along and wondering the whole way through. It's one of these things that's going to get them thinking about it and wondering and trying to figure it out, and that water cooler talk. And second, the esteemed fathers of my worthy opponents smell of elderberries.
That's the elderberry argument. I like it. Thank you, Matt, for your argument for actually keeping what happens in the books instead of the original intent. Now, now we have Siansonea gets to actually argue why The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime, Rafe and his team, should maintain Robert Jordan's original intent that Taim and Demandred are the same and that they are the killers of Asmodean. Go ahead, Siansonea.
Well, I mean, you can argue author intent either way, but the bottom line is this is a new turning of the wheel, and we have an opportunity to change the things that didn't quite land. And because it was originally conceptualized one way and then executed a different way, it weakened both Taim and Demandred to the point where Demandred looks like a moron, and he's set up to be this foil to Rand when he's introduced as Taim. And then because that's later changed and he's now Demandred and he never even meets Rand, then the whole point of Demandred is just completely nullified. He never meets his bitter rival. You know, he shows up and fights in the wrong last battle. It just makes him look stupid, you know, and it's just like, you know, I could much rather see Demandred as like an Iago-like character that basically serves as that foil to Rand, who basically questions him and lets the audience come along for some of the moral implications of the things that Rand does. You know, what better point of view than Demandred's should we be looking through during those moments? Like, I just think it would be much more interesting, much more satisfying, and it would combine the best bits of both characters into one great character that we could actually sympathize with and understand. As it is now, they're just two evil guys that are just evil, and they show up and they're evil, and it's just not that interesting. Like, I would much rather see all of that wonderful foreshadowing actually pay off, you know, the so-called Aiel, et cetera. You know, I just think it would be better.
Excellent. Both make some compelling arguments there. Now you both have 1 minute to rebut the other's arguments. So let's go over to you, Matt. Why is Siansonea wrong about this?
Okay, so you make a good point that the show has the opportunity to make up for some of the things that didn't land properly or land well. And I think this is one of these instances where Rafe can do that while keeping both characters separate. The issue that we've had with Demandred is that he doesn't show up until the end. We barely see him, and we barely see the Sharans. It's just all of a sudden, boom, right at the very end, they just show up in your face, like, you know, the neighbor who's crashing your party. Rafe has the opportunity to bring them in earlier in the series and really develop that. And Demandred plays a very, very strong anti-dragon. The Bow the Wild storyline is very compelling in that way. So keeping him separate and developing that. Now, obviously, they could do both, even if it's Demandred. They could still do the Sharan thing, but that really strains his ability to be developing Taim as the leader of the Black Tower and Mihail and his ending fight with Egwene, which in and of itself really is a very strong end to Egwene's story arc too.
Okay, thank you very much. Interesting. Yeah, Siansonea, you now also have a minute to rebut what Matt has said.
Well, for me, the whole Demandred thing always felt like a twist for the sake of a twist. It felt very Game of Thrones season 8 to me, how because the fans figured it out, Robert Jordan had to figure something else out. And it never really felt organic or cohesive, or that it paid off all of the infrastructure of the story up to that point. It just felt like, okay, we have to change lanes, we have to change trains, and this is what we're going with. And I think that both Taim and Demandred suffered as a result, and that restoring it to its original sort of concept is a beautiful way to sort of honor all of that work that went into all of that foreshadowing and that fractious relationship between Taim and Rand when they first meet. I think it's much more meaningful.
Okay, thank you both. You've made some interesting arguments here. Now let's let your team members come back into this discussion, and let's give them 30 seconds here to explain why their fellow team member is right and why the other team is wrong. And let's begin this time. Rob, let's go to you here. What is your thoughts? You have 30 seconds. Explain why your argument is the one here.
Okay, so you should keep Taim and Demandred separate because the fans of the TV show won't have access to notes like we do. They're not as in-depth as we're going to be. So they won't see that Robert Jordan changed his mind. And on top of that, don't you want them to go through the TV show thinking that Taim and Demandred are the same person and then get a really well-landed U-turn and just come out of nowhere and be like, damn, I was totally wrong, and just have a really, really great TV moment? I mean, come on. Seriously, that's going to be amazing.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Interesting points. And then we'll go to you, Mary. You also have 30 seconds to give us your final thoughts.
Yeah, my thought on this is the only reason why Demandred is a character we even care about is because of the Bow of the Wild outrigger story, which isn't part of the main books. Many people may have missed it. And unless they plan on doing a side episode that explores his experiences in Shara, when Demandred shows up at the last battle, nobody's going to care. There hasn't been enough buildup to why is this guy the big bad? You know, there's no engagement and it falls flat. So
Okay, thank you very much, Mary. Interesting points all around. I'll look forward to see who actually wins that one. But now Taylor will tell us you've been voting or had a chance to vote for the second question of the debate that we had before this one. And now Taylor will drop in here in chat who the winner of that debate was. Our first question was won by Team Tam Jokes. I'm kind of curious who will pick this one up. Let's see. This is always... I always love this one. We need drums. We have never gotten them, but we need some drums here. Yeah, thanks. Let's get. Ooh, okay. Team Evil AI wins with a more convincing 67% of the vote for question 2. Okay, we got 1 and 1. I like it. We'll drive into the end here. Question 4. But before we do that, let's have Taylor throw in a vote for this most recent question about Taim and Demandred. And I'm kind of curious how fans, I saw a lot of people in chat while you were all giving your arguments. A lot of them have kind of a, how they want this to happen. And then I saw some kind of maybe get a little bit convinced by some of your arguments. So I'm going to be curious who votes for whom here. So Taylor will chuck that into chat here. And once we see that, it's now open. So you can put in ! Vote. And then E or T, who had the better argument? Who convinced you that they were right about Taim and Demandred as far as it deals with the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime? Remember, that vote's going to be open here for the duration of the next question. So why don't we now get to question number 4? And while we have our team participants preparing for this question, I will give you some insight into what this question is. We often discuss best or worst characters, but it's their traits that are much more fascinating. From Aes Sedai, who have lived hundreds of years, to the awakening of old evils loosened on the world, to the end of another age in the turning, for which heroes have been reborn and the dragon has been reawakened. So which of the Wheel of Time characters is the best manipulator, and why? Now, I did make this caveat for our participants in the debate. Compulsion by the means of one power and or a ter'angreal are not allowed for consideration. So their answer will be disqualified if they use compulsion or ter'angreal in making their case, either explicitly or implicitly. And for those that know the Wheel of Time, you know what I'm getting at. You can't pick the person who manipulates with the one power, if you will. So knowing that, the first one up here will be Mary giving us her answer to the question, when it comes to the Wheel of Time characters, who do you believe, Mary, is the best manipulator?
All right. Well, Siansonea and I had a lot of fun talking about this one, and we finally decided on the absolute queen of manipulation, an expert at Deus Daemar, an Aes Sedai, and a Carhanen. We chose Moiraine. And the reason why we chose Moiraine is because there are many examples of her manipulating events without ever having to touch the one power. For example, in the New Spring, she convinced Lan to walk away from his one-man war against the Shadow and become her warder. So basically turning his back on everything that he had built his life to at that point in time to follow her. And she did that with her words. In the Great Hunt, She manipulated everyone into thinking that Rand was a lord just by changing his laundry. She wasn't even there. She just swapped out his coats. She helped him earn the Shinaran's trust by making sure that he was second in command, and they all knew it. She gave Rand the Dragon Banner, which was the fulcrum which led to the events of Falm happening the way that they played out with the sounding of the horn. In The Shadow Rising, she manipulated Tom Maryland, another expert at Daes Daemar, into going to Tanchico to keep an eye on the Wonder Girls by dangling his past and his care for his feelings towards Elaine and his failures, his perceived failures with his nephew, and dangling that in front of him to get him to go. She set in motion her own rescue, which big asterisks on that, but she set that in motion with a pair of letters, and then she died. And she was manipulating events after she died. So obviously no power use there. And when she finally did show back up again in the Memory of Light, just by walking in the door, she got Rand to change her mind, and she convinced the nations to sign on to the Dragon's Peace.
There you go. Mary, interesting choice there with Moiraine. I loved watching chat. I always like watching chat when you begin giving your answers to see how surprised people are. Okay, this goes over to you now. Just so everyone knows, the participants in the debate were told if the other team chooses an answer, the first team chooses the answer the second team it was planning on, they're going to have to come with a second option. So that being said, Rob, why don't you give us who you believe to be the biggest, or sorry, the most capable manipulator of the Wheel of Time? Oh, you're muted.
Not a good start. Okay,
we'll reset the clock. We'll reset the clock. Go for it.
So we traded a few names around. Moiraine came up, but we were like, we found someone better. We've also gone for an Aes Sedai. We have chosen Egwene. Now, the reason we chose Egwene is she starts at the middle of nowhere. You know, she's just an innkeeper's daughter, and she works her way up to the very top, and she does that through manipulation. Okay, her time with the rebel Aes Sedai, she is sitting there playing them back and forth like a fiddle against each other constantly. They're sitting there thinking, oh, we've got a puppet to control, and actually she's playing them around in circles. Look at how she got control of the war, how she could be the one talking to Rand, the one that liaises with him, simply by making them forcing them into a corner and saying, oh, no, you can't have this. We've got to have it. And then suddenly she can deal with Rand instead, type thing. And that goes all the way through the book. She keeps manipulating people like an absolute class Aes Sedai. And if you want something even better than that, okay, my mic drop moment here, okay, because I saw a mic drop in the chat and I'm just like, no, I've got a better mic drop moment than this. Okay, let's go back to the very, very absolute beginning. You say Moiraine is the one who's the best manipulator. Who turned up when they're all leaving and said, do you know what? I've watched you all doing this and I'm going to join you. And she didn't even have to do very much at all. She was just like, I'm joining you. Everyone's like, no, you can't. And Moiraine's just like, yeah, okay, fine. She just was like, yeah, I'm in. So that's all I need to say. Egwene is the choice.
Egwene. Okay, that's interesting. Egwene against Moiraine. It's fun to see people in chat kind of not like that they have to choose between these two. Okay, so back to you, Mary. You have 1 minute now to rebut the arguments that our friend Rob has just made. Go ahead.
Excellent arguments all around. Egwene is one of my favorite characters. Moiraine is also one of my favorite characters. But I would posit that Moiraine is the better manipulator for a couple reasons. One, nobody really manipulated her throughout the series. She was in control of her actions. Now, she let events guide her, but she was never manipulated. So that's one of the hallmarks of an excellent manipulator, is you don't let yourself get played. Now, Egwene was younger, so obviously part of her story arc was getting played. And I would rebut your last argument that she convinced Moiraine to take her, not because she convinced Moiraine that she should go, but Moiraine knew she could channel. So she had to pick up that girl and take her to the White Tower so that she could start her path to become an Aes Sedai.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Interesting counter argument there. And now, Rob, you have 1 minute to respond. Go ahead.
So Moraine is also an excellent choice, and I can't fault most of your arguments there. She's, as you say, who manipulates Moraine. Events would manipulate her. I would say she's been through. She's guided by going to the rings and things like that. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I've got to say. I've got to be honest and say I'm struggling. Moraine was our first choice. I can't. Moraine was our first choice. And I don't want to say that, but I knew you were going to steal it.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. Thank you both. Now let's bring in. We're going to bring in your team members, and let's bring them in and get their response here. And we'll start off with you, Siansonea. What is your 30-second response to what you've just heard? And yeah, go ahead and tell us here.
Well, there's 2 points to consider. Egwene was manipulated by Leandrin and placed in a Shan slave collar, whereas Moiraine had to be the negotiator between Egwene herself and Rand at the end of the books to get them to cooperate with one another. So if Egwene is this master manipulator, how come she couldn't do that herself?
Okay. Yeah, interesting counter argument there. And Matt, you have our last 30 seconds of this question. What do you say?
So, talking about not letting people manipulate you, Moiraine literally physically ran away from the tower so that they wouldn't put her on the throne of Cairhien. She was running away so that she wouldn't be manipulated, to try to avoid it being manipulated, because she knew that was going to happen to her. And Egwene manipulated the rebel Aes Sedai by playing both major factions against each other until she got enough power to be able to have them listen to her without.
Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, that is the end of the 4th question here in this debate. We have one more question, which they actually were not given at the beginning. They were only given the topic, and I will give them that question here shortly. But I think it's time to see who won the 3rd debate question. So Taylor's going to end that vote. I see that Mary jumped in to vote for herself there. Ooh, Team Evil AI did win the question 3 here with 63% of the vote. They are now have 2 of the questions here versus 1. And now Taylor will go ahead and put the vote for question 4, and then I will explain question 5 as you vote for the winner of that last question. As far as question 5, and I want to give everyone here on the panel an opportunity to hear the question, and then you'll be able to choose who you want to answer that, and then I'll give you a minute to think about it. So let's go ahead and give you the question. The topic for those watching was war. And we obviously know that Robert Jordan's experience in war played a significant role in how he wrote and described battles. So I want to give this question to the 4 of you. Which battle in the Wheel of Time, excluding Dumai's Well and the last battle in A Memory of Light, is RJ's most impactful battle in the Wheel of Time? So now between the 2 teams, who would you like to answer this question? You can go ahead and chat with each other here. You want to just pick somebody and let me know who you'd like to answer the question. And then I will give you a minute to think about your answer before we actually begin that round. So for those of you that are watching, I'm kind of curious. Let's not put any answers that you would have in chat just yet. Let's let them think about this. Do not help them out. That's my point. Let's talk about the answer after the debate. But yes, this is to me an interesting question, and they did not know this question was coming. So, okay. So to both of your teams here, Team Evil AI, who's going to be giving the answer?
I believe it's going to be me.
Okay, so Mary's going to be giving the answer, and then Team Tam Jokes, who's going to be giving your answer?
I will.
Okay. Okay, and we'll take you off the screen here. You can think about this for just about a minute, and then we will bring you back on here. For those of you that are watching, remember question 4 here. Those of you in chat, you're voting for the winner of question 4. So make sure you do vote for them if you have not. That's ! Vote E or ! Vote T. That's right. Who did you think actually picked the best manipulator of the Wheel of Time, excluding the use of the 1 power in ter'angreal? Obviously, I know most of you that are watching would have, maybe you would have picked Grendel if you could, or Lanfear perhaps, but I thought that was a bit cheating, so we didn't want to include those individuals in this conversation.
Funny story, Matt. We actually had arguments built to argue that Grendel was the best without using any instances where she used the power to manipulate
Yes, I know. I figured I wanted to make it so tough to actually try to bring one of them into that conversation, but that's funny. Okay, now let's bring you both on the screen here. I know this is you can continue kind of thinking about your answer, and is there one of you that wants to go first? We didn't flip a coin at the beginning or end. Oh, Mary is jumping on that. So Rob, you have actually 2 additional minutes to think about your answer, so that might help you out there. Mary, back to this question. Obviously, the question is, which battle in the Wheel of Time, excluding the last battles in Memory of Light and Dumai's Well, so very popular battles in the Wheel of Time, do you believe is RJ's most impactful battle, and why? And I'll give you 2 minutes to answer that question. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going for the easy answer. It's my favorite battle, actually, in the entire series, including Dumai's Wells or the last battle. It's the Battle of the Two Rivers in the Shadow Rising, and I just took your answer, didn't I?
We were bouncing a few around, don't worry.
That's good. All right, so why was that one so impactful? Because, and I'll argue this until the day I die, this was a battle of common people against overwhelming odds, and they won. It was just normal farm folk who were tired of dealing with the manipulation of going on with the white cloaks. You've got Ordith there, who they knew as Pat and Fane, and there was just all this, everything that was going on just in that little microcosm, and they took a stand. They helped each other out, and they fought even when the white cloaks didn't. These trained soldiers who were dedicated to fighting the shadows stood there and did nothing when Trollocs attacked, and yet it was the common man and the common woman with just their farm implements and their bows that turned the tide of battle and won the day. And that is just, oh my God, this is awesome. And it's almost like the Battle of Manetheren from the story at Winternight all over again, but it's in real time. And it was just, I will go back and read it over and over again and get chills every time. And even though it was just in a small obviously middle of nowhere battle, it impacted me as the reader. And then from after the battle, the two rivers organized themselves and became, this almost a cosmopolitan area. They had plans for moving forward. They've got trade. They've got they accepted people from other lands and into their culture. They and benefited from the skills that were brought in. And it was just like this beautiful aftermath. You couldn't ask for anything better.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Interesting choice. I did see some people in chat that were excited you picked that one. That is one of the well-known battles, and it was an interesting way to explain kind of why you felt that was impactful. So this question now goes to you, Rob. Which battle, excluding the ones that have been given as answers and the ones that were excluded as part of the question, do you believe is the most impactful battle from RJ, and why do you believe it was RJ's most impactful battle? Go ahead.
So I feel it's the Battle of Maradon. Okay, with Rodel Israde. Basically, this is an area where there's no major characters. There's, it's not a major part of the defense. It's just somewhere in the borderlands that is, trying to stop the tide of Trollocs. And in this moment, we get one of the darkest moments in the book where, you think everything is going to end. And Rand turns up when all hope has ended. Rodel is doing tricks and everything he's got up his sleeve, going around the city, trying to stop these Trollocs and hold them back and protect the rest of Ranland. And Rand shows up right at the very end and just by himself goes out and saves the city, saves all of the people there. You uncovers a dark friend in the process. It shows his power, shows his compassion, and it's so impactful for the change that Rand has gone through on top of Dragonmount. And it's, just that he cares, not just for a place where his friends are hanging out, or there is, a big significant point for, we've got to save Camelin, or, we've got to, keep the last, Malkir going with Lan. It is a case of, I need to go and save this place that has just been kind of ignored, and I've just left the dude to manage by himself. I just picked up from somewhere else and said, hey, come, fight part of, the Trolloc hordes for me. And it's a beautiful moment. And Rand's change of character is so evident there. It gives me chills to read it. So that was the moment we went for.
Oh, good choices, and chat definitely concurs. Two interesting choices. Now, Mary, this goes back to you. You have 1 minute to rebut this argument that Rob just made, that his choice is the actual best, most impactful battle in the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, that was an excellent choice. That was a great battle, and Rodel Iturralde is everybody's favorite great captain for a reason. And he also was fighting against insurmountable odds, and the fact that he wasn't winning was no fault of his own. But it was very a Deus Ex Machina event with Rand showing up and saving the day, which, was a crowning moment of awesome. But when it comes to, the battle, it was, it was great, but it could have been better. Whereas, I want to reiterate that the Two Rivers was, it was the battle of the common man. Instead of the scouring of the Shire, which from Lord of the Rings, the Shire won and the Shire blossomed afterwards. So it was almost a redemption of that. So that's why I implore you, gentle voters, to vote for the Battle of Two Rivers.
Okay, interesting counterpoint there. And Rob, you have a minute also to respond to Mary's arguments. Go ahead.
Okay, so I must also say that the Battle of the Two Rivers is a worthy choice for this section, so well done for picking it. But I feel that Marinen's better because in the Two Rivers, it's very early in the books, okay? It's, you haven't built up, all right, you've got a love of Perrin and Fael and the Two Rivers that has been started there, but it's not... it's just not as impactful for the story as a whole as the Battle of Mariden is. It's more impactful for just the Two Rivers. And I'm not suggesting that it's, it's a terrible battle or anything, but, for the story as a whole and Rand's character development, Mariden is much, much better. This is just a little tiny battle focusing on one little area. A worthy battle, but unfortunately, I must ask you to vote for Team T because I feel that Mariden is more important and more impactful to the story of the Wheel of Time.
Okay, thank you both for taking part here. Now we will bring back your team members. Let's bring them back in and see what they have to say. And in this regard, I think we'll start with you, Matt. Why don't you tell us, you have 30 seconds here. What's your thoughts on why your team member picked the right answer?
Okay. Two Rivers was emotional. But as a battle, it was fairly simplistic. It was everybody gather around inside the village with spikes pointing out and just shoot arrows and stab things at the Trollocs as they pile on you. As a battle, Meridon was much more complex. It was Rodel Iturralde. They had to retreat into the city. He had traps and all sorts of. I'm running out of time, but it was much more complex as a battle.
Gotcha. It is a short 30 seconds. I love the cup. Okay. Siansonea, you also have 30 seconds. Why do you believe, final thoughts at the end of the debate here, why do you believe that you and your teammates picked the right answer?
I think it boils down to what do you consider impactful? To me, the Battle of the Two Rivers is impactful because of the emotional connection we have with these people and this place. It's one of Perrin's best moments, and it's kind of the start of his arc as a leader, and it's kind of really one of his crowning moments of the whole series. Whereas the other one, it's just another Rand saves the day.
Okay. Thank you all. By the way, thank you very much for taking part in this debate. It was a lot of fun, and definitely for those that are watching, stick around. We're going to spend some time talking about these questions and getting some details about what else these individuals were thinking about when they got these questions, where else they might have gone now that they've listened to the answers. We're going to have a lot of fun right after we find out who won these last two. So Taylor, why don't you close out the votes for question 4? That's still open in chat, and let's see who won that last question before we vote on this final one. So you can no longer vote for question 4, and the winner of question 4's vote was E. Oh wow, E picked 72%. That technically means that our team Evil AI has technically won the debate, but I would still like to know, for question 5, from those that are viewing, I still want to know what you thought about those last two answers. So, Taylor, why don't you give us a vote once again? Open us a vote up here in chat and let the viewers vote on this last question. And while they do, we can talk about that. So, watch for the vote to be opened here in chat shortly, and then you can vote on that. I'm kind of curious while Taylor gets that going. What were your thoughts here, Mary, when you were given that question? Did you feel like you knew that answer immediately? It came to mind, or did you need a moment to really kind of focus on that?
Well, I had a bunch of battles pop into my head, but the one I picked came up, quick. Really, that's why I raised my hand. I'm like, oh, I want this one because it's going to get picked. It's the obvious choice, and I can argue it for days because it's my favorite. But yeah.
The impact there, and I knew I put you all on the spot. I think this came up in a discussion I was having recently, just about the different types of battles that we see. Tarwin's Gap is we actually don't see as much of that battle as we see of others. You think of the battle in Falme. That one was like mists, and you saw things from Rand's vantage point in many cases. You didn't really get up at close. Dumai as well is different. They all kind of have different texture as battles. And the thought came to me was, I wonder if Robert Jordan was trying to share some of the different kinds of experiences that he had. I think so, yes.
Yeah, I think he was expert at showing the horror of war, and the actual the how nasty it is, nasty is not even a strong enough word. It's the absolute horror, whether it be, the Battle of Maradon, where, the odds are against you and it's total guerrilla warfare, or the fog of war in Falme, or, everybody piling in and you've got the power as a weapon at Dumai's Wells, or one of the grossest battles in the entire book, the one outside of Lord Algarin's Manor, where they just turn it into an absolute meat grinder. It's just that visceral feel of all the battle scenes that it just shows his skill at writing those. And I agree with you. I think he's pulling from his experiences in Vietnam.
Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on that? Something, as you look at what Robert Jordan wrote there, and, what do you feel like he was trying to communicate with any of those, or just with battle and war in general?
Well, I just think every battle had kind of a different environment going on, as Mary's just said, the fog of war, just a brutal meat grinder situation. Like, you've actually asked the question, I'm thinking about all the battles, even smaller ones or larger ones throughout the books, they all had a different situation, a different setup, a different environment, and a very different vibe to them, despite the fact it still felt like they were all fighting, in a consistent way for the story. There was different setups that really gave you all the different ways that war could go, right down to something as simple as being attacked in a village in the middle of the night because it's cursed, which is very minor, not a battle really per se, but it's still something pretty freaky.
Yeah. And as we talk more about this, I want to, for those of you that are voting, we'll close off the vote here. Thank you very much for everyone that participated in chat, that showed up tonight to take part in this Wheel of Time debate. I hope you're enjoying these. We'll come back and we'll do these every month or two here. But yeah, let's see, Taylor, go ahead and tell us who our winner is of this final question. Because I know I saw chat seemed to kind of, this one was a bit more difficult, if you will, for people to choose from. I think Maradon kind of surprised people more I think everyone was like, oh yeah, Edmonds Field, that's the one. I felt that pulse. And then you said Meriden, and all of a sudden everyone started saying like, oh, that's good too. While Taylor gives us the final vote here, let's get some drums. And, ooh, there we go. Tam Jokes won this last one. Last question here. Well done, all of you. I know these questions, you only get them, the ones that you get to see a couple days before this. You don't have too much time to kind of prepare, and that's part of the fun. So now, that being said, congratulations to Team Evil AI. Way to go. Good arguments there. I want to kind of think back about these questions. Was there anything that stood out of the questions where you wish you could have gone back and changed one, where you had a second option you wish you would have kind of gone with as you think back about them and the answers that you discussed as teams?
I wish. Go, Matt.
We ended up winning question number 1 anyway, but I had wanted to point out that Carrie Althor was actually on Moraine's list. And she had a list of people in the Legends version of New Spring. She was reading through, and Carrie Althor's on her list. So
yeah, that's in the Legends version, and then it's taken out right in New Spring in the actual
in the version.
Yeah, he made that a little bit too obvious. I'm sure somebody said to him like, "Wait, why didn't she know?" And he's like, "Yeah, good point. Let's take that out."
The dangers of prequels.
Exactly. Yeah, that one. That is true, and it's difficult when you're given only about 2 minutes to try to make your arguments, and then you actually get here and it's live, and you're like, "Oh shoot, what was I going to say?" Was there anything else, other answers that came to mind here while you went? Either new ones where you're like, "Shoot, I wish I would have made this point," or one that you had discussed and you wish you would have included?
Well, I mean, we definitely considered Grendel as the master manipulator, because compulsion is kind of beside the point with her. She manipulated the Dark One himself. Like, he thought making her Hessalam was a punishment, and she was like, dude, you really thought I cared about my appearance? Whatever, and she manipulated all of the other Forsaken and got some of them killed as a result, and she had her own agenda the whole time. It's like, and the only person that could really get the better of Grendel was Grendel. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that is. I mean, I tried to work against that. I probably could have just said, no, you can't pick Grendel. Because I knew that everyone watching would be like, well, even if you take away the one power there, if you use the name Grendel, it's like, well, she has to win because she's Grendel. Anything else come to mind and answers where either the last question we had about war, where one's come to mind now that you've had a moment to think about it, where you wish you could go back and change an answer that you made? No.
Can't argue with results.
Yeah.
I actually took wars literally, and I actually prepared 3 pages of notes on all the wars listed in the books, but didn't go to battles because you didn't mention the battles. So I was like, battles is a small part of a war, so I didn't think of that. I was just doing wars.
No, so were you
what was your
prepared
favorite
with
war?
Yeah, what was the one you with all the research you did? What would you have picked?
Now you're putting me on the spot. I can actually close my notes.
Yeah, where are those 3 pages at?
They're off in the internet somewhere. I know I would have picked the Aiel War.
Okay, yeah, that is
that's like to me that's as interesting as all the other wars that they've talked about. The Aiel War is literally the most central to the books.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's very instrumental. I tried to be really specific about some of these questions because, we could have talked about the war, the breaking of the world and those wars. There's a lot you can choose from. Now, I'm kind of curious, for those of you that are still here and chat with us, what else would you like to see us do from a debate standpoint? We've gone with this format. Is there anything you'd like to see us tweak? We tried a little bit different here, which was to give some open-ended questions and let everyone choose their answers versus assigning an answer and a side of this that they had to argue. And we tried kind of just a question that they did not come prepared for, which was a little bit different than our first debate. And so this question goes to people in chat and also you four. Is there something else you'd like to see us try from a debate perspective that might make it a little bit interesting the next time we do a debate here? Or we're just perfect?
Like
this is perfect. You like the mystery question? Okay. Yeah. Would you want?
Yeah, I really like the mystery question. That was a.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's just a really good element to it, because we had a subject, but we didn't know what you were going to ask, and so it's like, do you go first with probably the most obvious answer, or do you go second, have more time to prep, hear what your opponent is saying? And it's really like, this is on the spot anyway. When you're doing rebuttals, you have to rebut what the other person has just said. So you can prep, but you don't know what your opponent's going to say, and it might stump you like it did me, sadly. But it's just a lot. It was a lot of fun to try and be like, do you go first, do you go second? Like, which battle do we pick? What's your arguments? And debating back and forth between us. And I think that they definitely keep a mystery question. Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I'm seeing some answers here in chat. Audience asking a question. That one, maybe next time we'll open phone lines and we'll basically just take the first question that comes in, or we'll take the fifth caller or something like that. We'll do like a, like the seventh caller's question, Yeah.
As long as the question isn't sing karaoke.
Yeah, exactly.
I think all rebuttals must be given in a Monty Python old lady voice.
Yeah, I can do that
for him.
I'll try it. Like, I like the. So yeah, Chris mentioned the audience ask a question. Alyssa said, I prefer people picking their answers, and yeah, we did most of that this time, which I think was a little bit different than our last debate, and so I hope everyone appreciated that aspect. I do like the aspect of having to make an argument. And this might be coming from my English degree background, but I liked being asked to, make an argument and make it well, even if I didn't necessarily agree with it. I always think that's an interesting way to try it. A wheel of questions, Doug says. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Ooh.
Spin the wheel. One, yeah. Okay, I like this idea. Have topics on a wheel. Maybe we'll mix a debate with our kind of game night next time, and we'll spin a wheel of topics into a debate. I love that. Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you very much, Doug, for throwing that out. Ginger said, have both teams do a pro argument, then a con argument against their own teammate. That's an interesting one. Which team argues best with the pro and con? Like, that's a.
And here's an argument.
Yeah. I like Master of the Deck said, swap teammates for a question. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yeah, whoever loses a round does a shot. I like adding a.
I did see a drunk debate in there. Yeah,
adding a drinking element. That's true.
I did not come prepared.
Let's see. Who else? Oh, debate bracket. Okay. So to this question, Rajesh. Sorry, I probably killed that name every time I say it. When it comes to debate bracket. Would you want us to do something where in the midst of it, they're debating and dropping out in a single show? Or is a debate bracket like a team wins, and then the next debate, another team wins, and then those winners play each other? What are your thoughts, panelists, as they answer here? Would you, like, if you did a bracket, would you want it to be all just live in one show? Or would you want something that builds over time?
You've got to have, like 8 people or...
Yeah, you'd have to. You'd have to have like 8
4
teams
is over very quickly, isn't it? Yeah.
I think logistically it would work best to do it over several shows, because otherwise it's going to be an extremely long show.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is we can still do that, right? We can make a bracket from the first 4 teams, or that end up winning each of these first 4 debates, and then actually start building it out. So we can keep on doing these debates, but eventually have a bracket from the winners. So yeah, I love that idea.
Well, I think it should start after this
after this one.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for a bracket system. I was,
yeah, you weren't ready for that. You were like, I didn't realize there was something that came after this.
Approach this entirely differently.
Would have had more Tam jokes.
Yeah,
you'd have been ready.
Who is, let's see, have people debate why they should be the Amarillan seat. Do an episode where we get to request your guests perform their favorite lines in character. Oh, there we go.
That would be fun.
Put audience call in question on the wheel. Okay, there we go. I like that. So we're definitely doing the spin the wheel, random topic, and a couple of those will be call-in questions, and we'll have people do it. That is a lot of fun. Alholic said your wheel is faulty. Yes, if you watched our last game night, we could not spin
the wheel
off
was
of
fixed.
It was like we only I swear it was
You
like
gotta
Wind
kill
doesn't
the
will.
it
beast
was
off
like
the
one
back of
one to
it.
5, and then like 21 to 24. Or
It was a
something.
bubble of evil around
It
it.
was definitely a
You
bubble.
spun 4 like 5 times.
I know, it was crazy.
If we do the one where you have to do a line in a character, you have to invite Brother Dan and
Okay.
Brother Ryan.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, well, thank you very much for your ideas. Thank you to the 4 of you for participating and preparing and putting time into this crazy thing that we do here with this live show. And again, for those of you that are watching, if this is the first time you've ever been here, please make sure you like this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And please subscribe. Just as a reminder, we're getting a lot closer. I think we're down to about 350 more subscribers before we hit 10K. And that's the special episode where my son, who does production in the back, he will be hosting that show. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're actually going to do some blooper reels type things. We're going to play some videos, clips from past shows that we thought were really funny. He's giving me some looks like, don't promise things I can't deliver as a host. And I'm like, that is my setup. I'm trying to set him up. So everyone shows up and he's like, yeah, I don't know what to do.
I have a question quickly for you, Matt.
Yeah,
does
go
that
for it.
mean you'll be producing for Taylor?
Yes, it does. I'm going to be having so much fun back there. I'm going to be pressing buttons and be like, oh, sorry, let me show 7 people on the screen,
So which scares Taylor more, hosting or having you produce?
That's a good question, Taylor. Which scares you more, you hosting or me producing?
Both? Both?
He's thinking about it.
Both is good.
I like how Delusion said we need more Taylor's calves. Yeah, we need more Taylor's calves. He has not answered his question yet. He doesn't know. He's undecided.
I just have to teach you how to do it.
Yeah, he doesn't want to spend time to teach me. That's right. So thank you all for being here. Remember, we do an after show in our Discord channel. So if you happen to still be here, go check that out. You can find us over there. We can chat all about the debate that we just had here with our fine guests. It's been a lot of fun. And as a reminder, Sunday we're back here live, diving deep into all the Forsaken, and actually talking about my favorite. We're going to get to Lanfear, but I'm going to save her for the end of the episode. I won't capitalize on that one. We'll talk about Moghedien and Grendel first. Be back here on Sunday, everybody. And thank you once again for viewing. And as we say around here, good night from the Dusty Wheel, and smash to black.
If you want news and